we'll take roll call, please.
All right. Blake?
Here.
McBurney?
Here.
Obrecht?
Here.
And I have not seen Kroll or Carberry Montgomery join. Oh,
I'm here.
oh, there you are. Carberry Montgomery.
Here.
Excellent. Thank you. Sorry about that.
All right, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved, Obrecht.
Or did you second that, Larry?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and second it then.
Obrecht, second by McBurney. Any further discussion? If not, roll call.
Obrecht?
Yes.
McBurney?
Yes.
Carberry Montgomery?
Yes.
Blake?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We have a couple items for discussion today on our Lunch and Learn. First is the 2023 construction update, and Kristen, are you going to kick us off?
Sure. So we are actually combining kind of the 2023 construction update, and then the slides at the end are for the Hickman Interchange update as well. So I have a lot of slides. It's probably not good to start a presentation by announcing that, but there are a lot of slides. So I will go through fairly quickly in the interest of time, but feel free to jump in or stop me if you've got questions on a project. We can certainly discuss in more detail as we go through. Okay. Let me make sure. There it goes. Okay, so the first project we want to hit on is our big one for the last couple of years, the 170th Street and Meredith Drive reconstruction. Just a recap of what that entailed. It is our third complete streets arterial reconstruction. That would be after Waterford Road, 142nd to 156, and then the Douglas urbanization east of 100th Street. We had a lot of pavement, a lot of trail. The separated bike lane as part of that complete streets design is on 170th Street. On Meredith Drive, there's a 10-foot bike trail. We also had a lot of storm sewer out there. And everybody's favorite, the traffic signal at Meredith Drive, which is going to be a really nice asset out there. The total cost of the project was almost $14 million. We have some photos. This is the last day of paving Main Line. As we approach just in front of the school, actually was one of the last sections done. You can see there they used the belt and the placer for this. And then we also had some photos of the last U-turn lanes getting paved. Very exciting days. This is a view of 170th Street looking north. So you can see the water tower on the right. Our satellite facility is farther in the distance on the right. And then on the left is Mallard Prairie and Radiant Point and the school. Meredith Drive looking west. You can see our lovely new signal there and the 10-foot trail on the north side of the road. And then just want to give you a closer view of that complete streets treatment. So we've got the 5-foot PCC sidewalk, the 10-foot HMA separated bike lane. And the separated bike lane means it's separated from the street paving. Obviously, it's next to the sidewalk. And then it's painted so that folks have an idea of where to go. And we have the special paintings at the crosswalks as well. Just want to give you a kind of closer view of what that looks like. So that's 170th Street. And it is essentially done. They did some final restoration, and over the last couple of weeks, there's a couple of areas we need to keep an eye on for restoration, but we're very glad that that project is wrapped up. This year's preservation project was Aurora from 86th Street to Tanglewood Drive. We have 10,000 square yards of pavement reconstruction, almost 5,000 square yards of patches. We did add quite a bit of subdrain along here to help with that pavement longevity. We don't typically do a lot of subdrain on our roads. We just don't need it, but it did seem to be related to some of the issues here, so we're adding that in. And the cost of the project was $2 million. I think a question popped up on the chat. I'm actually not quite sure how to see the chat when I am in presenter mode.
I'll just ask it then instead. It was
Go ahead.
on the painting, how often is that refreshed? Because I noticed along Douglas, some of it start to get pretty faded.
Yeah, so we typically repaint everything once a year. We had a little trouble this fall sourcing the green paint, but they found some a couple of weeks ago, so they're working on getting that repainted. Those crosswalks are going to be just a little tricky because you often have turning traffic. You got a lot of tire tracks across those green crosswalks, so those might need to get touched up a little bit more often, but we do typically paint everything once a year.
I guess just step in. Sorry, this is John. Actually, we usually hit things in the spring and the fall, so we'll keep an eye on that. If we need to paint it more often, we'll definitely keep an eye on it.
Okay. Rural preservation. So here's our project map. Again, we went from Tanglewood to 86th Street, and you can see we have some areas that just needed patching. Some, there was enough damage that we thought a total reconstruction would be more effective. And we've been working our way through the project that kind of started at both ends and worked towards the middle. This is the portion of Stage 2 paving west of Maryland Drive. That's all done now and reopened. Oops, I guess that was last slide. We've got one more stage to do. Let me flip back. So Stage 4 needs to be paved. They are hoping to move into that next Monday and get that wrapped up. It should not take long. It's a short phase, and there's not a lot of driveways on it. So they've moved along very quickly, and we are got the end in sight. The Douglas beautification from 100th Street to North Walnut Creek. Last year, we talked about the urbanization portion, adding on those curb and gutters and that complete street design. This year was the beautification, so the installation of the plantings and the aesthetics details. We've got 6 light columns. They're about 10 feet tall. We also have 3 leaf sculptures, which are each made up of 5 leaves. They're also about 10 feet tall. A lot of plantings, 173 trees, 1,200 shrubs, 5,000 bulbs, and then we have areas of eco-grass, which is a lomo grass, and turf grass. They installed an irrigation system. This isn't your typical irrigation system with heads and timers. There are quick couplers for parks to attach to. The sprinklers you see running out there belong to the contractor to help get the sod established, but going forward, parks would just attach to the quick couplers. And the cost of the project is $650,000. So this is an example of the leaf sculpture. This was, unfortunately, I took this a couple of days before they weeded the beds. So you do see some weeds there. That's been cleaned up since then. As with all plantings, it's an ongoing process to get the plantings you want established and get rid of the plantings that you don't. And this year has just been so dry, it's been a little tough to get really good growth on the stuff we want, but they're making good progress out there. And then these are the light columns. I think they look really nice once they're lit up at night. Both of these have that walnut leaf motif is the idea. These are the individual petals, and then this one is the full walnut leaf. Okay. Our patch program. This year we had 3 phases of our patch program. We did 2 of maybe our more usual ones in neighborhoods. The first phase 1 was in Eastern Urbandale. Phase 3, we called it, was in Western Urbandale. Usually we make them slightly different sizes. It just helps with managing the contractor bids and allows some different sizes of contractors to bid on these. We also include any impacted ADA ramps as with those projects to make sure they're addressed as we go through. And then phase 2 was the patch and overlay at the Douglas Roundabout, repairing some of the joints out there. The cost of these 3 projects combined was $2.2 million. So our phase 1 project in Eastern Urbandale was along Lochner and then to the northeast of Lochner. I've had a whole bunch of calls from residents on the south side of Lochner wondering when we're getting to their streets, and the good news is that's the area for next year's patch project. It was too big to do it all in one year and too much of an inconvenience, so we split it at Lochner, and we'll be coming back to do the area between Lochner and 72nd next year. Phase 3, our other patch project, was in Timberline Village. That contractor cranked that out pretty fast at the beginning of the construction season, so that's been done for a while. We're just checking on final restoration, and then we'll get that project closed. And then at the Douglas Roundabout, we had some bad joints. I had a video, but I cut it for time. There were some serious joints falling around the entire thing. So we did a few patches, did partial depth patches on the joints, and then did a full overlay, and I think really improved the driving surface out there. Okay. Our next project is the community entrance signs. We're in phase 3 right now. It is just getting started. The footings have gone in for those signs, but they are not installed yet, so that's in progress. Those 3 locations are at the south ramp of the 86th Street interchange. At Northwest Urbandale Drive, we had a sign there. We're replacing a sign at the same location. And then at our North Corporate Limits on 100th Street. That project was a $320,000 contract with Edge Construction. Currently in design are the next 3 signs, 86th Street at North Park Drive, 128th Street at the North Corporate Limits, and 104th Street at Hickman. They had those 3 mostly designed, and then all 3 locations we felt that we could make some improvements, improve the scale of the monuments or the location, and so we're kind of circling back on those. At 86 North Park, we intend to discuss that with the development on the west side there, figure out how to best fit it in with their existing sign and coordinate that. So hopefully to start those discussions here very soon. These signs do include lighting. For both of these sign packages, we decided not to include landscaping. We feel that our Parks Department can have a better product of that if they just take care of that after the project's done. The contractors that do these sign constructions aren't necessarily landscapers, and parks are just the experts on that, so they can handle it. So just to recap for this year's project, again, we're replacing that sign at Northwest Urbandale Drive. There's a rendering of what the new sign will look like. Then at 100th Street, at our North Corporate Limits, it'll be a smaller sign on the corner, kind of like the one that's at 156th Street in Maple. And then the one at 86th Street and the south ramp of the interchange will be similar to the one on 100th Street in Hickman. There will be 2 Urbandale blades on it. So whether you're on the ramp or whether you're on 86th Street, you've got an Urbandale sign facing you. So it'll be similar to this one, but with an extra blade. Okay. Our next project is the Parks and Public Works Facility Solar Array. This is a 225 kilowatt solar array system. There's a 20-year warranty on the panels. We have an estimated life of 25 to 30 years. The inverters have an expected life of 10 years. The array is in. We're just waiting for that final connection back to the electrical system, which I understand should happen fairly shortly here. And then the cost of the project is $520,000. So just to see it, there's a photo of the whole system on the roof. And then we've got a couple of close-ups so you can see the panels. And of course, from the ground, you can't see these because of the parapet around the building.
Can I jump in and ask a question or make a comment?
Sure.
I think the council is really excited and proud that we were able to get this project taken care of. So when we do get it plugged in, AJ, could we make sure we do kind of a press release or something to let people know that we've done it?
Certainly can. It's with these photographs, and when we get it fully installed, yeah, we'll have Derek put together a press release, get them out there, share the photographs, give an explanation of the savings and all the things that are good about it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You'll shine some light on it.
Yeah, we could have unfortunately, we can't have a flip the switch like we do for the 86th Street Light Project for the Miracle of Lights. It's already ongoing, so we'll come up with something though.
Awesome.
Okay. Our next project is the salt storage building. This is the new building out at the satellite facility at 170th Street and Waterford. So we have a current salt storage building at 9401 Hickman. It holds about 2,500 tons. The satellite facility out on Waterford can hold another 1,500 tons. And of course, it's a closer location for the trucks when they're on the west side of the city to reload. We wouldn't expect that it would be entirely full with 1,500 tons most seasons, but it gives us some room to grow out there. It is ready to go into use this season, and the cost of the project was $775,000. Got some photos of when they were installing the walls. must have been like the only day last spring that it rained. We happened to be out there seeing it. And then a drone photo of it. So I don't know if you can see my mouse. On the right, that's the satellite facility with the break room and the storage for vehicles and equipment inside. We've got the fueling site, and then on the left side is the new salt storage. The training trench at Fire Station 42. This training trench is not found in any other department in Iowa, and in fact, I think in the Midwest. So it's rather unique. The fire station has been really spearheading this project to get this done. They sponsored with NUCA, which is the organization of local underground contractors. So these would be the companies whose staff is in trenches, which might, at some point need rescue, and so they're very interested in providing this training facility just to make sure that staff is up to speed on the best way to do that. So they contributed labor, materials, and funding, and they also spearheaded some fundraising from other organizations. The total cost of the project was $184,000. And then we've got some photos. Derek, I think you took this one of the overhead view of the training facility. You can see how big it is. They put some rock around it to help with maintenance. And then the posts are for the fence. The fence did go in last week. I was hoping to get a photo of the fence for today, but didn't quite make it. Parks has also seeded the area, so that will be filling in here soon, but I think it's looking nice. Some shots during construction. Obviously, it's kind of an unusual structure, and so lots of rebar, lots of unusual walls to get formed up here. And then part of this, too, is they had a couple of manhole structures that they attached to the trench. Obviously, there are some times that people need rescued from manholes, and so those will also be great training facilities for them. You can kind of get the sense of the size of it before it got backfilled. And then just another shot of it cleaned up and how it's looking and ready to go. North Walnut Creek Bank Stabilization. This project was done really last winter into last spring, and it went from 86th Street out here, well, a little southeast of 86th Street down to Hickman. We have a number of banks that were eroding, and this project helped stabilize those areas. 3,500 tons of riprap of various sizes were used. Those were used in a number of practices. So we used bendway weirs, rock riffle structures, stilling basins, and then maybe your more traditional riprap slope protection. One of the reasons we had this project go out to a consultant for design was we really wanted someone who was familiar with all these practices to be able to recommend which ones fit best within that channel and really get that expert advice. The cost of the project was about $500,000. So here's just an example of what the banks looked like beforehand. We were having a lot of vertical banks, losing trees, and starting to encroach on the trail, and in some locations, the sanitary sewer. Just need a little bit of help in that channel. So this is an example of the bendway weirs. They're kind of shorter rock extensions that come out, and it helps direct the energy of the creek back towards the middle. There's a lot of meandering on that creek, weaving back and forth down to Hickman, and that just helps keep the energy of the channel flow in the middle of the channel instead of eroding the banks. We've got riffle structures with stilling basins. So the idea is that it slows the water down as it goes out over the riffles, and then there's the stilling basins to slow the water down again and just let it gradually work its way down. And then our more traditional riprap slope protection just to armor that bank and give it some protection. And that project was completed last April. 128th Street and Hickman Road. This is a DOT-led project to widen that road and provide turn lanes at 128th Street. One of the things we wanted with the project was that 10-foot trail on the north side. It goes from 128th Street, actually west of 128th Street, connects to the trail and the bridge we put in a few years ago, over to the entrance of Heritage Park. When the interchange project comes along, that trail will continue on through, and we'll talk about that in a minute here. Our cost of the project was $1.15 million. So this is a rendering of what the trail and the wall would look like. and then this is a photo of the wall in. So you can, it does look very similar. The things sticking up above, those are actually the parking lot lights for Stu Hansen. Is a bit of an optical illusion. There will be a fence on top of that wall, but they won't be that tall. So that's the parking lot light farther back. And then this is the trail west of 128th Street. So they got a little ways to go to get this cleaned up and ready for use, but it's coming together. So that was a lot of our major projects just to run through. Here's a summary again of our largest projects from last year. The one I did not mention was 156th Street traffic signals at Meredith and Waterford. That project is starting now. They've got the footings in. It'll be a little while until you see those signals go up. There's been a bit of a lead time on materials for signals between the poles and the equipment themselves. So that one's going in a little later than expected just because of the time it takes for the materials to arrive. Part of that project as well will be connecting those two signals and the signal at Douglas to our fiber network with our looped fiber project. So we'll have connectivity out there and up to Barrett-Bozen Park. And then some other projects, we have our annual sidewalk program, annual ADA transition plan, our traffic signal improvement project. We do annual trail projects for parks, sewer lining programs, spot repairs, those kind of routine maintenance to keep our infrastructure in good shape. We're also working on the 100th Street adaptive signals. So from Plum to North Comfort limits, there's 5 signals there. We received some DOT funding to implement an adaptive program there. That project will go out to bid and be a next year's construction or installation. And then we already mentioned the 128th Street and Hickman Road project. In addition to all of our CIP projects, we also inspect subdivisions and site plans, other public improvements on developer projects, which then become our infrastructure. So this year, our staff inspected quite a few subdivisions, kept very busy. We also have quite a few that are still under construction. Most of the ones on the left side of your screen that are under construction, those are nearing completion. So Barrett Estates, Barrett Ridge, Bentley Ridge, Highland Meadows 5, those are all coming online very soon. Magnolia Heights 1, 3, and 4. So we have a lot of single family lots that are coming online here very, very shortly. I would expect all of those to get platted by the end of the year. And then Prairie Tower Plat 3 and Urban Loop Commerce Park, those are the 2 commercial developments with the warehouses off of 128th Street. Those are also moving along very well. We've got a number of other projects likely to start this year. We do have fewer subdivisions in the queue coming through the pipeline than we did last year. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. For one, you can tell by our list, we've got a lot of single family lots available right now in Urbandale or about to be available. So I think we're at least well set for available lots for a little while. I think in general, subdivision development is slowing a little bit as well. So I think it's a combo of having a lot already going on in Urbandale and everything slowing just a little. And then just a quick preview. I know we're about to start our CIP project process, but major 2024 projects coming up. We've got the Merle Hay District Storm Sewer. We'll talk about that in just a minute too. The Douglas Urbanization east of 86th Street. Of course, our annual patch project. We're still trying to get that trail done across underneath the railroad bridge on Hickman next to our public works site. Next round of community entrance signs, ongoing bank stabilization projects, and then our annual improvement projects as well. Just a real quick recap on our stormwater CIP projects. So again, just as a refresher, a couple of years ago, we completed a study for 6 sub-watersheds in eastern Urbandale, figure out where we need storm structure, where we had deficiencies. That study identified 10 locations to kind of make a top priority. We can't do all 10 locations at once. Some feed into each other. Some are just too close to each other on the map, and it takes a lot of resources. So kind of prioritizing these are where we want to start. This was meant to be a living document. So as circumstances change, as different issues come along, we can shift those locations for new information or new situations. For example, that opportunity came to deal with the Merle Hay Storm Sewer. That opened up the neighborhoods north of and west of Merle Hay Mall that previously we wouldn't have been able to work on. So that gives us some opportunity to start looking at those locations sooner rather than later. So the two big ones we've got coming up are that Merle Hay District, Reinvestment District storm sewer. We've already got an existing culvert that comes under Douglas that's undersized for the size of the watershed coming through. This new culvert will provide additional connections to Madison and Airline as well as to the mall. And we are hoping to go out to bid on that yet this fall. It will likely be a 2-year construction project. It's going to be a fairly major undertaking to get across Douglas. And then the other location we're starting with is Roseland Drive and Palm Drive. We just got concept drawings in for that, so we're starting the design process. AECom is designing this one. Part of the reasons the 10 locations were chosen to start with is that these are also areas with poor pavement. So a lot of this will be a reconstruction project similar to this year's Aurora. Adding in the storm sewer obviously adds a level of complexity on that. We're also working with water utility. They've got some water main that needs repaired in these areas and coordinating that work as well. So we're optimizing our projects instead of coming through the same neighborhood twice. So then just a quick recap. So in the upcoming CIP, we'll be discussing these next 5 locations for where those projects occur. A quick preview of what's coming up. Okay, so that is our construction update for 2023. Before I move into the Hickman interchange discussion, any last questions on our current construction projects?
Kristen, this is Bob. I may have missed it because I got distracted right when you were talking about it. But on the Douglas from 86 to 100, the street lights, when will those be all powered? I know them are...
Yeah. So actually, we just had a meeting yesterday with Mid-Am and asked again about those lights. I think they actually had a crew out there yesterday working on it. They said that apparently the new cable they installed had some bad wiring in it, and so they're having to rerun some of the cable. I agree with you. We're a little frustrated that it's taken so long to get those street lights back on, but it sounds like they were hoping to get those repaired this week. I did check the camera last night, and they were not operational last night, but hopefully soon.
Okay, that's a question I get a lot of. So okay.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yep, good question. Absolutely. Any other questions?
Yeah, this is Bridget. This is kind of an ongoing concern, so it's no surprise. But and I know this has been an exceptionally dry year, but you know, I'm frustrated that we put in so much money on these road projects, and then when we finish them up, you know, we throw spray grass down and hope for the best, and then they just look, you know, the streets look great, but the associated grassy areas and the medians do not look like they are brand new. So I've talked to AJ about this over the years. I'd like to see us start doing some landscaping, like Clive does in their medians, you know, grasses, whatever, or just making sure that we're getting the grass really established. I mean, I know on Douglas, we finally got the weeds out of there, but the grass looks pretty less than ideal that was left. So I'll just leave it at that. And I'd like to see us, you know, when we do new roads on 142nd and other major investments to look at what we can do to enhance. You know, it doesn't need to be a streetscape project like Douglas. Douglas looks amazing, but it doesn't need to be to that extent. But I just feel strongly that we need to do a little bit more.
Yeah, and we do follow up. We actually just had a walkthrough in the last week with the plantings contractor on the Douglas restoration, and the remaining things that do need to be done to get that looking in good order. We're also looking ahead with next year's Douglas project on. And every year we do this, we put some more notes in the plans, or we try some new mechanisms to make sure the contractor understands our expectations with that. We're looking at next year putting some additional notes in for required watering even beyond what SUDAS requires, as well as monthly meetings to make sure that we are touching base on that restoration. So for example, on this year's Douglas Urbanization Project, there's a 1-year warranty that the plantings have to be in order and things need to get established. For that current project in the spring, we're going to set up a regular meeting with Parks and the contractor, so we're out there and having that face-to-face and having that discussion to try to push that restoration along as much as possible.
Thanks for that. I just want to keep thinking about ways that we can enhance, these greenscapes. I don't know what the right word is, but I know previously we've been adverse to planting trees and things like that in these beautiful parkways that we're building. But I'd like to look at, things that we can do to continue to enhance them.
We will continue to have those discussions. Yes. And I think staff's already been discussing some of those items. So hopefully we'll have some ideas for you here shortly. Any other questions before I head into Hickman? Okay. So quick recap of the Hickman Interchange project, and in particular our corridor visioning component. So the cost for the design of the corridor and visioning study and the associated design for the aesthetics, for the trails, and for the stormwater management is $680,000. The total construction cost is almost $10 million. They're estimating the aesthetics and landscaping at $3 million, pedestrian and bicycle facilities at $6 million, and then the stormwater management at almost $1 million. We did receive $2.5 million in STBG funding for that project as well that will be used for that component. We do need to determine the final cost share between Clive on the construction and the ongoing maintenance costs. Our current design is about 65%. They'll be wrapping up the final design here in the next few months, and there's been a number of meetings with the consultant, Snyder and Associates as a consultant, with Urbandale staff, with Clive staff, on how to refine the scope of this design, not just to have a very nice looking interchange and entrance corridor, but also what does this look like for ongoing annual maintenance for city staff? What are we committing to taking care of going forward? So that balance of finding things that can be maintained and still look impressive. So right now they're estimating the ongoing annual maintenance cost will be about $162,000. Obviously that's, it's kind of hard to estimate, labor hours and what kind of attention it'll need, but that's their estimate. There's been discussions between Clive and Urbandale on, are we good with that? Is that too much? Can we handle more? How does this get divided? And how that maintenance occurs. So one of the things we're kind of looking for you all today as feedback is, are we on the right track with this? Are we heading in the right direction? And your thoughts on that ongoing maintenance component. The project letting will be in the fall of 2024, and the aesthetics are wrapped up with the rest of the interchange projects. There's a number of different bid packages that are getting let. So it's getting designed now. Obviously the trail and the pedestrian bridges and culverts will go in with the construction. The landscaping aesthetics will be one of the last things installed. So even though that's being let here soon, it really won't go in until 2028, 2029. It'll be a few years before we see it. This is an overview of the interchange, and just a reminder, this is a diverging diamond interchange. So hopefully you can see my mouse. The folks in the ramp come down, they can have a free right. They can also have a free left because they have this crossover in the middle to put the traffic on the other side. So it really helps with efficiency by reducing conflict points. It helps with safety by reducing conflict points. And they are adding an additional lane. So right now there's 2 lanes going through in each direction. With the new design, there'll be 3 lanes going through in each direction. The trail to the west there, that's the new trail that's going in right now with 128th Street and Hickman up to Lifetime Fitness. It'll come in. There'll be a loop here to take the trail underneath in a culvert underneath Hickman, and then you can head on south into the Clive Greenbelt. Or if you stay on the north side, there'll be a pedestrian bridge to go over the off-ramp, and then it'll swing back and go in a culvert underneath the interstate, and then back over another pedestrian bridge to continue to the east, down to Living History Farms. We will have an RCIP then to take that trail from the end of this project back to 100th Street in a future year. So this very colorful layout kind of gives you an idea of what the plantings are proposed. So the light green is like your regular turf grass, lawn that you would mow. The kind of working backwards, the orange colors here next to the interstate, that's like a low mow. So it looks like long grass, but it's a little taller. It's about 8 inches. It sort of flops over. I think it's really pretty, but it's meant not to be mowed very short. Low mow means you don't mow it very often, not that you mow it low. So it's meant to be a very nice ground cover. I think it's a nice ground cover. Next to that in the blue would be trees and shrubs. So of course they want to place those that aren't going to cause any sight distance issues. So that's a good spot to do it. Put some trees and shrubs next to the trail. The darker red in these little islands is the bioretention. So that lets the water get into that from the pavement and get some filtering action, water quality improvements before it goes back into the ground or back into the storm sewer. Adjacent to that would be native grasses and forbs. So again, kind of like the low mow, you have a little bit taller grasses, and then I would think of it like what we would think of a wildflower mix, something like that. So some natural look to the plantings there. And then back in the islands approaching, again, the orange is kind of that low mow, and then the purple is taller native grasses, and then there's going to be some monuments here, and I've got a photo of that. Underneath the interstate in the blue is labeled trees and shrubs. I think maybe that needs to get refined a little bit more. I'm not sure how many trees and shrubs you can put in that area. I think that might end up being something a little smaller or pavement. One of the many things we're discussing. So those islands at the east and the west end, this would be the area that we've got the lawn around the outside, and then these middle sections would be those native grasses and forbs. So again, you can kind of see that wildflower look. And then they've got these columns proposed as an entrance feature. And just like on Douglas, keeping with that walnut leaf motif, they've got a walnut leaf on top, and then their limestone architectural columns. They've got some renderings. So obviously this is an overhead view. This would be more what you see as you drive by. So you can see the columns. It also kind of helps block the headlights from the other side of the road, provide a little bit of screening there, and you can see what that column looks like. The pedestrian bridges will be a truss-style bridge, so you can see how that might look. You can see there's little walnut leaf motifs on that bridge as well. This behind it here is one of the retaining walls. So we've got a number of retaining walls on this project. They all have some aesthetic detailing, but depending on the location, they've got more or less. So this would be the area next to the on-ramp and off-ramps. Vehicles are going fairly quickly. They're looking at merging. They're not really looking at the walls they go by. So there's a nice texture to it, but it's not particularly fancy. The walls next to the culvert, where the pedestrian bridge goes underneath the interstate and underneath Hickman, those are getting a little more detailing. It's a chance to, people will actually see those walls. They'll be standing there and can look at them and give it a little more interest. So again, that walnut leaf motif is repeated. Around the entrance to the culvert, there'll be a metal frame that kind of serves as that gateway. And then I think these are the walls underneath the interstate. So as the cars go by underneath the interstate, these would be in the bridge abutments, and you've got that wave motif with the creek, supposed to evoke the creek. The other feature underneath the interstate, so the underpass where Hickman goes, is some colored concrete, and then some architectural columns, and these serve a couple of purposes. So this is an overhead view of the colored concrete. There's some green and blue and tan motifs there, gives it some interest, but again, keeps it fairly low maintenance. Obviously, this is underneath the bridge, so you can't really do any plantings there. It gives it a little bit of interest as you go by. These items at an angle here, that's these structures. And again, the intent on this is twofold, both to provide an aesthetic detail as you go under the bridge and also to help block the headlights from the vehicles coming the other way. So again, with the diverging diamond, you're driving on the left instead of the right. So folks have crossed over and they're driving here and driving here, and blocking those headlights just helps reduce confusion as you're underneath there. And once again, we repeat that walnut leaf motif. And you can kind of see how the cars driving by, these would be set at an angle. So as you go by, you can see that feature. So that's a real quick overview of the Hickman interchange. What questions or items would you like to discuss on that?
So, Kristen, you mentioned the annual operating cost, 106-ish thousand if you're on the right track. What do we give up if that number goes lower? So, that's, I guess, what I don't know is,
Sure.
Yeah, that's the number, but.
Yeah. What do we trade off for it? Yeah.
Right.
No, it's a good question. And actually, I think from the initial design, Snyder's actually pared this down quite a bit. I think primarily in the variety of plants. So like originally, again, in these like trees and shrubs areas, the blue area, I think originally they were specifying like 10 or 12 different kinds of plants. I think they've streamlined that down to only be, 2 or 3 kinds of plants. So you still have the plants to maintain, but you maybe have a little less work because you're doing the same treatment on a bigger area. You can treat them all similar. Like we mentioned, also looking at like this area in the middle, do we really want trees and shrubs here? This isn't a real great area to be able to get to. It increases some cost and some labor to get to that. So would that be better just to make those areas concrete and eliminate those plantings? I think that ultimately ends up being the trade-off is the quantity of planting or simplifying the plantings, as I think they've done already, to kind of minimize the number of species that we're trying to take care of. Also, there needs to be discussions on the mowing area. Typically, the DOT will mow, the areas up here, so that would be their maintenance. If this is a low mow and we don't have to get in there as often, that's great. Do we look at making some more of this low mow, or do we look at a different kind of ground cover to reduce that routine maintenance cost?
Okay. Yeah, I think those are all, on a good path. The area in the middle, I think I do agree with you that's question mark. I see that as being a big garbage collector. Mm-hmm. That everything that gets tossed out of a vehicle or gets blown down the interstate, underneath interstate bridges, it just seems to be garbage collection area. So the less things that stuff can get stuck in and under, i.e. bushes and shrubs, I think the better.
And talking about access, one of the things we talked about is they're showing it here too. Like these are actually wide enough that you can pull a truck onto it. So parks could bring their truck with water truck and that sort of thing onto it. Helps with safety because you're off the street. Also helps reduce traffic control. Anytime you can provide ease of access and minimize the time that staff spends out there to maintenance, that also reduces costs. So looking at improving some of those things to allow easier access.
Okay. And then the other is on the bridges. Is there any sort of signage or stuff that way that we should be looking at in the design of the pedestrian bridges that are going across the interstate, so cars coming down have a sense of place there?
You mean a sign on the pedestrian bridge for the cars coming down?
Yeah, something seen from the roadside. You're going off the on-ramp.
Yeah.
Down the Hickman. I think we got some maple leaves. Is there something else that should be there?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. So you're thinking more like a motif rather than text?
I don't know. It's a big space that's going to see a lot of traffic. Mm-hmm. Do we need to say something?
Yeah. I think the DOT might have some reservations about putting text up there. They are very careful about what kind of signs are posted and sign overload, that kind of thing. But yeah, I think if there was some ideas for, yeah, motifs in branding for images, that sort of thing could possibly be looked at
Yeah, I don't know, putting our Urbandale U in the metalwork or
into
something.
the metal. Yeah, and I don't know if that'd be something that, again, the DOT is always nervous about having things over the roadway. If there are some things that could be like attached to it later on, if we wanted to attach a U to the side of the bridge, I'm not sure the answer to that. I'd have to ask.
Okay. Just a big blank space in my mind.
There's a lot of room there.
Yep. Thanks.
So Kristen, you indicated that we already secured $2.5 million. Is that the extent of the funding that we're going to get?
They're still working on other funding. So they applied for the state recreational trail grant this summer. We did not get that. They just put in for a federal recreational trail grant about a week ago. So obviously we haven't heard about that one yet. I thought there was one more coming up they're going to apply to it as well, but I'm drawing a blank. So they are still looking at other funding sources, yes.
Okay.
All right, then one other for me. The trail connector from 100th Street out, you mentioned that was kind of be an out year item versus having that trail ready once this is complete. Is that a funding thing, or is that a CIP conversation we'll have later?
John, do you remember which year we've got that trail in?
I believe in the CIP it's like 27, 28, so it's either roughly the same time or right after the DOT does their work.
And putting it so that the trail's there once this is done, is that a funding thing on CIP?
I think it come down to funding, correct. The other thing is, with everything that's going on, it's just a matter of we want to add one more thing going on at the same time.
Potentially, yeah, since the traffic flow on Hickman should be lower during this, I didn't know if that'd be the better time to put it in, so.
Well, it's actually, I believe it's in the CIP for the same time the trail gets constructed with the DOT. So we
Okay.
kind of meet up in the middle.
I assume that's now part of our new TIF district, and so the TIF funding is what we're waiting on.
I believe, I can't remember off the top of my head as far as the TIF funding.
Okay.
The one we just amended, Adam?
Yeah, I was thinking that ran right where that trail was going, so.
I'd have to go back and take a look at that. I don't know if Curtis is on. He was at home this morning, but if he's on, he could address it more specifically. I'm just trying to think of the geographic expansion we made there.
I just remember how far west it went, but it's definitely something we can talk about at CIP time. But again, my recollection is it's the same year as the DOT's project.
Okay.
So John, this is a major thoroughfare, and I know it's like one of the biggest areas traveled from Waukee and from Clive, and we see a ton of traffic. Are we already preparing for how we're going to close down this section and reroute traffic? Because I anticipate that this is going to take a lot of work to change it from a traditional road to a diverging diamond.
Correct. Yeah, they're setting up the contract. They'll have a certain number of days where the contractor will completely close Hickman. As you realize, you have to close it for a certain period, and then there still will be some extended detours that we'll have to deal with. So it will be a long, painful project, but again, it's just got to look towards to what it'll be when it's done.
John, have they established any detour routes at this point in time, do you know?
Yes. Yep, but most of the detours will be either when they're working on the interstate, they'll use the ramps up and down the interstate, use Douglas University to bring you back. When we start working on Douglas, most of the detours will be like on Hickman will be 128th Street, Douglas will be your way around.
John, this is Bridget. So Waukee seems to not be able to stop working on Hickman. I know they're not party to this project, but are we communicating with them so that hopefully they're not doing crazy stuff while we're doing crazy stuff?
I don't know that we've had a lot of conversations. I mean, we do have, you know, quite a distance in between anything they'd be doing in this, because again, this only goes as far as the entrance to Lifetime.
Well, I think for the happiness of people that live west of 8035, I mean, the more we can do to just give them heads up and coordinate. I understand but there's, you know, 20,000 people or more heading into Waukee from here, likely. I mean, I'm making that number up, but it's complete chaos all over Hickman right now. So when we do start getting stuff torn up or have our agendas, I'd like to make sure that we're looping just the right people in Waukee in as well.
Yeah, we can share with them, and they should be. I mean, anything they're doing on Hickman would need DOT approval, and again, the DOT is the common denominator here.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. This is a DOT project, and same as what they would be doing there. So, and that's all shared at the tech committee too at MPO.
So I noticed in the southwest corner where the new trail is going to connect down through into the green belt, we have a lot of grass, a lot of lawn. Why don't we have more trees around that trail to provide more natural shading?
I think that's on a pretty good slope, as I recall. So I think there's some difficulty there just with the grades.
Also, Des Moines Waterworks' main water main is there with an easement that we cannot do anything within.
Gotcha. Okay.
And it's hard to see on this overhead view, but like in the northeast corner, that's where we've got there's a retaining wall and that sort of thing. So again, that's why there's no trees there. Is you've got a wall coming around the corner because of the grade difference. So fortunately, that's hard to see in plan view here. What other questions or comments?
Sure. Well, again, it's you know, as we alluded to, it's definitely going to be a major disruption to this area, but it's also the last interchange on the metro system that has not seen anything since it was originally constructed. So it's definitely in need of that, and there's going to be a lot of short-term pain, but hopefully for some long-term gain on it. So.
Yeah, I'm personally excited that we're going to be making updates to the Hickman Super Speedway.
Well, that is the end of my presentation. So, yeah, I had believe the steer was trying to attend council one night and was not allowed in. So, they can get our update on the website.
That's great,
Okay.
Kristen.
Anything else? That takes us to the end of our agenda. AJ, anything further you wanted to bring up today on your end?
You know, just a reminder, this presentation will be on our YouTube, so you can go back and refer to it. I know that last night and over today's noon hour, which I heard on the radio, that the water utility was giving an update on the program. I'm trying to get them to come to council to do a similar update. Unfortunately, they didn't have the capacity to record their session last night or over the noon hour. Don't know why, but that's their issue. But we'll get them in so we can have a more comprehensive explanation of what appears to be them getting near the finish line when it comes to the new agreement for the water utility consortium.
Yep, I attended last night. There were probably about a dozen residents there. And afterwards, I think they're going to try to schedule one more evening meeting as well. So hopefully get that more widely publicized as well, so.
I've got a unrelated question from the last council meeting. We had the woman that came and spoke to us about the pond in the park and the part, I don't know, 100th and Meredith, or not Meredith.
At Ward
Urbandale.
Park, yes.
Are we following up with her, or what is what are we doing there?
The talked to both Scott and to Jan after the meeting. They're looking to find out where they can access electrical, so we can look to put back in the aerator. We're still at a situation where it's low flow, and so the absence of rain really does create more of that problem. It just, you need the flow going through those ponds to really, to help the buildup of the algae and the green material. The aerator will help to a certain extent, but at the same time, it still is dependent upon reasonable rainfall throughout the year to keep that flow. But right now, they're looking at where we're going to be able to tap into an electrical source. Previously, it was provided by one of the buildings along Meredith that has their back entrance toward the park. That was the last, we had a discussion last week. They're investigating that now.
Okay, thank you. I just we didn't really talk about it in the moment, and I wanted to make sure that we're holding ourselves to the same standards as we do to our, homeowners association ponds and things
Yep.
like that.
Yeah, we do, and we've had some other questions about other ponds. Colmarden Park, there's a pond there that we've had some issues with that. Lakeview Park, Lakeview Pond up near the middle school is also one that we continually have algae growth and those type of things. So we're aware of it. Again, a normal rainfall in the spring and summer would certainly help keep that to a minimum.
Speaking of rainfall, while we're on the line here too, I know a number of us are planning on Project Uplift, and the weather forecast does not appear to be too good for Thursday. So for those that signed up for the City Hall project, Nicole, have you talked to Olmsted or the Historical Society at all yet, or?
I have not, but I will follow up with Aaron this afternoon and the Olmsted House as well.
Yeah, well, there's a good possibility we will not, since that's an outdoor project, we will not be able to do that on Thursday with the rain. So stay tuned on that. And then are T-shirts available
Yes.
for pickup?
Yep,
Yes,
we have
those-
T-shirts and we'll get them to you, Mayor.
Okay, are they in Nicole's office or?
Yes,
I think we have them at various places, City Hall and at the Chamber.
Oh, I received the ones for our team here at, just this morning, so.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I talked to Aaron DeYoung this morning, and we talked about the weather forecast and the projects at this point in time. If it does create, if Thursday is a wash, literally and figuratively, then we're anticipating that we would use next Thursday, which would be October 19th as the backup date for the project.
Right. Yep. We would still have the lunch kickoff though this Thursday at 11:30, but it would just be it would still be inside the Jovenet shelter, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
All right. If there is nothing else, then for the good of the order, we are at the end of our agenda. We stand adjourned.